All right, we're on with David Mulugheta. First of all, thanks for joining, David.
Anytime, anytime. Appreciate you having me.
So you just got through, I'd say, normally a grueling 3 days, but I think most of your work was done on the first day and just a little bit on the second day of the NFL draft. And
It was a couple of days for sure.
speaking of that, you personally had 8 out of the first 56 picks in the 2020 NFL draft. Do you have any idea whether that's a record for an individual agent? And did you set a goal going into 2020 and meet it?
I'm not sure if it's a goal. I couldn't tell you. But as far as goals are concerned, man, the goal is always just to represent good guys. You know what I mean, obviously good football players, but even more importantly, guys that you can have a relationship with outside of football and kind of helping them achieve goals outside the sport. So from a goal standpoint, definitely set that very high level, high character guys that I'm working with. So yeah, man, it was definitely a good year.
And it was not just you. Again, 8 out of the first 56 picks. I don't know if I remember an individual agent, at least in the past 5, 10 years, who's done that. But it was also your company that did an amazing job. You had
Sure.
Athletes First, the company that you're with, had 22 picks through the first 3 rounds of the NFL draft.
Exactly.
And you all have had success as a group in the past. In fact, earlier today, I put up a tweet from a year ago where Athletes First didn't have 22 picks for the first 3 rounds, but I think maybe 15 or 16. What made this year different for you as a group?
I think just evolving as an agency and really buying into the teamwork aspect of it. We've had a few agents that probably had their best year so far. Ryan Williams, who was a full-time marketing guy at one point, who's been an agent for a while, but spent a lot of time on the marketing side as well, has now kind of moved into the agent realm on a full-time basis. He did a great job this year representing Kenneth Murray, obviously Brandon Ayuk, both first-round picks, as well as Tua Tagovailoa. I'm sorry, I always have trouble with his last name with Tua as far as marketing is concerned. So he did a great job there. Savannah Foster, who's one of our who's a female agent Athletes First, had her very first round pick this year with Austin Jackson. So it was really a team effort. We had a lot of people pitch in, and it kind of all came together this year.
Speaking of the agency Athletes First, what made you pick that company when you were first starting as an agent? And for anyone who can't tell from viewing you, if they're listening to the podcast, you're in your 30s. You're young. You've got a lot of years ahead of you. But so you chose Athletes First in the recent past. It wasn't that long ago that you were coming out essentially of law school and choosing an agency to work with as you started your professional career as an agent. So why'd you pick Athletes First, and were you considering any competitors?
When I initially came out of law school, like you said, I think Athletes First, gave me my first opportunity. Gave me my first job. That was my first job out of law school was with Athletes First. I was an intern while I was in law school, and they gave me the opportunity when I got out of law school. So for me, it was about loyalty. When I first got there, when I first entered the business, they gave me that opportunity to kind of get my feet wet and get involved in the business of football. And a few years ago, when it was time for me to decide, I guess you could say I was a free agent, in terms of football is concerned. So had a bunch of companies reach out and that showed interest. But at the end of the day, it came back to, I wanted to stay with who I started with, who I kind of built that foundation with, and, who trusted in me and gave me the opportunity. So I think it was a lot about loyalty and the people there, the great people at Athletes First. And I didn't really see a reason to go anywhere else.
What challenges did this unique 2020 virtual NFL draft present? What were some of the positives that you'd like to see going forward as we hopefully go back to quote unquote normal and have a draft where people are invited to the green room, including yourself, and you'll have players that are actually drafted live, hugging the commissioner, et cetera. What would you like to see incorporated?
I think just the involvement of so many players, right? I think when you invite guys to the green room, there's only a certain amount of people you can invite. I think most of the time it's around 25 guys that they invite to the green room, whether that's this year would have been Vegas or wherever they hold the draft every year. So obviously having that opportunity is awesome for those guys, but I think there's a ton of great football players in college football, and a lot of times there's not a lot that separates a guy that goes 25 from 40, right? There's a ton of guys that can go in that range. So I think adding those extra 30 to 40 players and allowing them to have those videos and cameras set up at home where we can kind of invite football fans into their living room and kind of allow them to see that moment when guys, all this hard work, this years of football playing for free culminates into you being an NFL draft pick. So I think just having so many guys involved in it, so many families involved in it, so many different storylines that come from that, I think was phenomenal. I think having the opportunity for all these guys that work so hard outside of just those guys that get invited to the actual draft, I think that would be the biggest thing I would add, the component I would add in the future. As far as, things that were a little different on this year or would be not being there with your guys in person to kind of walk them through the process of being drafted. Every moment in the draft, every pick, even though it's only 2 or 3 minutes, feels like an eternity if you're an athlete waiting to get your name called, right? So there's a lot of anxiety in the room. There's a lot of concern from family members. When is my son going to get drafted, my nephew, whoever it is. So just being able to kind of calm those tensions, help guys kind of understand how the draft flows and so forth. That was kind of different, not being able to be there in person. So we had to do a lot of that over the phone. And at the same time, you don't want to call the guy's phone and then, interrupt when a team might want to call, right? So you're calling mom, you're calling dad, you're calling, big brother, big sister. So that part of it was a little different, not being able to, really just sit there and talk to your guy throughout the draft. But outside of that, I think the NFL did a phenomenal job with the way they set it up this year.
And so you went from the NFL Combine in February to a lack of pro days, but obviously working with your players to get their film out to various teams, to then 3 days of the NFL Draft. But again, you kind of got your business done after day 2. What does the life of David Mulugheta look like following the draft? What any plans or going right back to work right now?
Honestly, it's going right back to work, right? Starting to figure out, the rookie contracts, figuring out the arguments you're going to make to teams and so forth for your players. You kind of shift into that mode, as well as recruiting for next year. Recruiting never ends in this business. Always looking to add new family members, guys are going to be coming out in the next year or so. But right now with the country being shut down, a lot of that's going to happen from right here in my home office. It's not a lot of traveling. Normally I'd be on the road, but my wife's not allowing me to leave the house right now. She has me quarantined.
We're in the same boat.
Yeah, I haven't left the house since March 11th, which was the day before Clemson's pro day. Didn't make it there because of everything started shutting down. So I've been in the house, either the front yard or the backyard with my kids since March 11th. So
it looks like you got a nice setup, though. It doesn't look so bad.
It works. It works out.
So how do you grow from here? I mean, people look at what you've accomplished this year. Again, 8 picks in the first 56 selections, 8 of them being your clients, and some of them very high draft picks. What fun projects may you have in the works? You talked about already going out and recruiting for next year. I mean, where do you go from here?
I just keep building, to be honest with you. The thing I love most about this business is just developing those relationships with kids that are coming out of college and their families, and kind of helping them evolve from a young, a student athlete to a young man to a professional, and so forth. Kind of those different phases in life. So really, that's super important to me. I have guys that are involved in different startups, different companies, starting to do a lot more equity deals as far as on the marketing end, instead of doing paid sponsorships or endorsements. We're starting to look into a lot of opportunities from an equity standpoint. Recently, I know Deshaun Watson and Jalen Ramsey, 2 of my guys, entered an equity partnership with Rally Road, which is an investment platform. So just looking at more opportunities like that for guys, making sure guys are using their platforms that they have. Obviously, like I know me and you've talked about in the past, these guys play with a helmet on. So a lot of people don't know who they are. So in the moment that they have this kind of spotlight on them, just trying to make sure you maximize your network and maximize your relationship. So that's something that we're really working on with our guys from off the field standpoint. But for me, man, I enjoy it. I enjoy that relationship building and helping kind of mold these young men into successful entrepreneurs, business people, football players, obviously, and so forth.
Well, David, again, thanks so much for coming on. Congratulations on an amazing 2020 NFL Draft and an excellent start to your career. I'm looking forward to following what you're able to accomplish, not only with these current clients, but with future clients that you represent. not only on the field, but also off the field. Thanks again.
Well, no problem. I appreciate you having me. You have a good one. It doesn't look too bad behind you either.
And that's a real background. That's not a Zoom background.
I see the leaves shaking and so forth. Well,
Thanks,
you have
Dave.
a good one. Thank you.